Welcome back to EDU-Tutor. Today we want to look at January 2025 Principles of Business, Paper 2. Alright, so this paper has 5 questions, and the first question says Rachel Kaur is the owner of a good care beauty salon. The salon consists of 2 departments, nails and hair. The nails department comprises of 5 technicians and is supervised by Julian Jones. The hair department comprises of 7 stylists and is supervised by Kaylee Scott. Rachel Kaur manages the business and is assisted by an accounting clerk, Maxine Stamp. Use information in the scenario above to complete the following organizational chart for Good Care Beauty Salon. The title and the name of the employees must be stated in each case. An example has been done for you. And they had manager Rachel Kaur. Now, it is when you get a question like this, you have to ensure that you read over the business. So, there is a scenario that they gave you. In this case, it asks us for both the title and the name of the employee. So, let us go through it. It said that we have an accounting clerk and 2 departments. So, the accounting clerk would be managed by the manager. And that is why we have Maxine Stamp here, and her title would be accounting clerk. Sorry. So Maxine Stamp, accounting clerk. The 2 departments, so you would first look at the organizational chart that they give you in full. It now has 2 divisions, and we know that we have 2 departments. So one has to be nails and one has to be hair. So if this is a nails department, the head of the nails department would be at the top of the nails department. So Julian Jones, nail department supervisor. And then we have Kaylee Scott, who is the hair department supervisor. So that was an easy 3 marks. Now, if you only have the name of the item, the persons, you would more than likely get half a mark each. So one and a half mark, right? But if you had the name and the title, then you would get all 3 marks. It says state the span of control of the manager of Good Care Beauty Salon. The manager is only in charge of 3 persons: Maxine Stamp, Julian Jones, and Kaylee Scott. Right? She is not directly in charge of the nails department nor the hair department. She would pass on the information to the supervisors, and they would pass on the information to those persons in each department. And we can also see that it's a narrow span of control. All right. It says identify 2 potential sources of conflict that may occur between the manager and the employees of Good Care Beauty Salon. There's no one answer to a POB question like this. So I listed some of them. We have poor communication, sexual harassment, discrimination, preference, I should say favoritism, poor working conditions. All of those would be examples of conflicts. Then it says describe each of the following strategies used in the resolution of conflict in an organization. The first one being mediation. So mediation, that is when a third party comes into the business and they try to facilitate communication between the 2 persons who are involved in the conflict. And they do that so that they can come to an agreement that is not legally binding, but only so that it can foster collaboration between the 2 parties. On the other hand, arbitration, that involves a third party coming into the business just like the mediation. But in this time, so in arbitration, it is a formal conversation between both parties, and whatever decision is made by the arbitrator, it is legally binding, right? Then it says list four characteristics of a good leader. So I listed some of them. We have integrity, accountability. They must be able to make decisions. They must be able to communicate effectively. Sorry. They must be able to delegate tasks, and they must be able to take on risk. It says explain two benefits of a manager adopting a democratic style of leadership rather than an authoritarian style of leadership. So we know in a democratic style of leadership, they promote team participation because persons can vote on decisions that they're making. So on the other hand, in an authoritarian style of leadership, whatever decision is made by the leader, everybody in the group has to follow that, right? So, being that this asks you to explain, you know that you have to give details on each point that you give. All right. It says builds a stronger relationship with employees. So, in a democratic style of leadership, since you're listening to what they're saying, you will get to understand what type of person your employee is and how they think, how creative they are, so that you can learn from them and they can learn from you. So that's building or fostering a stronger relationship. Meanwhile, in an authoritarian style of leadership, whatever you say, persons will have to do. And so sometimes the relationship will not be as strong as it should be between you, the leader, and the employee. In a democratic style of leadership also motivate employees because they have a say in the decision making. So they are more motivated to do the task more than when it is in an authoritarian style of leadership, where sometimes they may not like what they were asked to do, right? Question two, define the term entrepreneur. So, an entrepreneur we know is anyone who takes on the risk to start a business. And then it says, say two characteristics of a typical entrepreneur. An entrepreneur must be able to calculate risk. They must be creative, they must be self motivating because there's going to be times when the business may not be making the profit that the entrepreneur is expecting. And so the entrepreneur must be self motivated so that they keep on the path that they're going on and they keep working hard so that they can make that profit. And an entrepreneur must be able to solve problems, right? It says describe each of the following functions of an entrepreneur in a business. The first one being conceptualizing, and we know that this is the first step of the entrepreneurial process. And this is when the entrepreneur comes up with a business idea. Bearing of risk as an entrepreneur, there's a possibility that the business decision that they have conceptualized will fail. Therefore, as an entrepreneur, whatever decision you're going to make, you need to ensure that you calculate the risk. So, is what percentage or what's the chance that this business idea will fail, and what's the chance that it's going to succeed? Should I do this or should I not do this? Right. So those are the things that the entrepreneur have to think about. Accessing resources. As an entrepreneur, you will have to access resources, and that includes the process of finding and using the factors of production or other inputs such as materials, capital, labor, and information. Right? So, accessing resources is the process of finding and using the factors of production or other inputs such as materials, capital, labor, and information. Then it goes on to say, outline two roles of entrepreneurship in the development of the Caribbean economies. So, entrepreneurship, when people start businesses, right, they're going to create jobs. And in turn, that is going to reduce unemployment in the country. So, more persons are going to be employed. Taxes. So whenever you start a business, you will have to pay taxes. That is when you officially register the business. And taxes in turn are used to provide public services, roads, healthcare, education. National income will increase, and we know that the profits that the companies make, they increase the national income, and it also increases um, interest in local and foreign investment. So persons will want to invest in the country. All right. Karim wants to open a restaurant to sell fried chicken in the capital city of Sanlio. Explain how Karim could comply with two government regulations or policies for the protection of the environment and or public health while establishing and operating the business. So Karim should ensure that he properly dispose his waste. So any waste materials that he is going to get from his business, he needs to properly dispose of them. He needs to also ensure that he's using food safety and he's practicing hygiene standards. He should also register his business. And any labor laws that exist within that area, he should ensure, for instance, ensuring that workers are paid at least the minimum wage so that nobody reports him. Question 3. Caribbean economies benefit significantly from the contribution of cottage industries. We should state 3 characteristics of cottage industries. So we know that cottage industries, firstly, they are home based, usually small businesses. They usually produce items that are skill based. So maybe crafting, weaving, cooking. Those are the processes that they would use and more. And whatever they use to make these products are usually from local resources. Then it says list 3 types of goods or services that are often produced within cottage industries. And we from the skill base we can list some of those. So carvings, clothing, beads, herbal teas, baked goods such as puddings and cakes. And there are more, so you can think of more and put them in the chat below so that I can give you my input on those. Alright, so now it says state 2 advantages of small business operations. So I have quicker decision making, stronger customer relationships. So when the business is small, we don't have to pass through a lot of persons to make any decision. The owner can make a decision by himself, or depending on the type of business that they are operating, it still won't be that such a large amount of persons that the information has to pass through, or that amount of persons to approve the decision. Stronger customer relationships. So sometimes even the owner will know the customers, right? And then the flexibility. So business can easily adapt to any changes that occur in the market. On the other hand, we should state 2 disadvantages of small business operations. So limited resources. We will get low access to capital, small staff, and limited technology. So all of these can be individual disadvantages. So you can say limited resources, and limited technology improvements. And there are more disadvantages, but we're going to stick with these 2. Jerome operates a small fruit juice manufacturing business in Spicestone. Recently, he has seen opportunities for the growth of the business and has been considering expanding. We should state one way in which Jerome's business could grow internally. I have three. He can open new branches, right? So that's expanding the business by creating new branches. He can add more persons to his staff, so expanding his staff, or he can invest in technology. So bringing some machinery to make the fruit juice instead of him crushing and grinding the fruits, he can get a machine to do that. State one way in which Jerome's business could grow externally. We have merging of the businesses, franchises, as well as acquisitions. Explain the likely effect that expansion could have on the organizational chart of Jerome's business. So, as the business expands, we're going to need more workers. So, more staff will be hired. It will get challenging for one person to manage the new staff, and therefore we'll get more supervisors and more managers. This changes the organizational chart from a line to a staff, and this will create new departments as well as new roles within the business. Next, it says that we should define the term linkage industries. A linkage industry is a relationship between two businesses because the goods and services that are produced from one industry will become the raw material for the other industry, right? And in Jerome's business, we should explain one backward or one forward linkage, which means that if you chose backward, you only do backward, and if you choose forward, you only do forward. So I gave you two examples. So one for if you chose backward, and one if you chose forward. So for backward linkage, it would be a fruit vendor business that would have been created to sell fruits to Jerome, right? While forward linkage would have been Jerome's juices being sold to wholesalers, restaurants, and supermarkets. Now let's look at them individually. So for backward linkage, our business is created to supply Jerome with the raw material, which is fruits. On the other hand, forward linkage is Jerome's output being sold to a business as its input. Right? So remember that wholesales, the input would have been anything that they buy from a supplier to sell to a customer. All right, question 4. List 4 methods of retailing. We have online stores, supermarket, specialty store, and department stores. Describe each of the following terms of sales. Well, the first one being hire purchase. Now, hire purchase is when a buyer makes a down payment or an initial payment. Sometimes they call it a deposit on an item, and they get the item to go home with. After that, they make equal installments with interest until they have finished paying for the product. Now, the buyer is not the owner of the product until all payments are complete. Now, even though we say equal installments, sometimes customers will choose to pay more than the amount that they should so that they can finish sooner, right? Then we have consignment. In this sale, goods are sent from the owner, which is the consignor, to a buyer, which is a consignee, for the purpose of sale. The consignee will sell the goods on behalf of the consignor and get commission off its sales. The unsold goods can be returned to the consignor. And we should be familiar with the process of consignment. Then we have layaway, where a customer makes a deposit on an item so a customer makes a deposit on an item and pays the rest over time. The customer receives the product when the payments are complete, right? So they don't collect the product until they have completed payments. Then it says state four functions of consumer organizations. So consumer organizations, they should protect customers. They should inform customers about their rights. They should do product testing to ensure that the product is can be consumed by consumers, and they also offer legal support for consumers. And you have more functions. So if you are thinking about one and you're not sure about it, you can always put it in the chat below, and I will tell you what is my input on it. Now, Venus Communications Limited provides mobile phone services to the citizens of Peanut Island. The management of the company is concerned that business is often openly criticized for its poor customer service. We should explain one way in which poor customer service is likely to affect the success of Venus Communications Limited. So my explanation that I gave is that poor customer service will lead to bad reviews from customers. So normally when you're using a business and you want to know about the business, you will Google it. And sometimes you will see a Google review. And if you see a company with only 1 star and everybody's saying something bad about it, it's going to have a bad reputation on the company. And therefore, you're not going to want to buy from the company. Similarly, that's what I would have explained here, where we said that this will lead to a bad reputation for the company and people will choose to buy from other companies. This in turn will reduce the sales of the company and also its profits. All right, so when you get questions that you may not fully understand, try to put it in a way that you would be familiar with. Now it says explain how online chats or surveys could be used by the management of Venus Communications Limited to improve the company's customer service. So just like Google reviews, if you have online chats and surveys that would go to the customer after they have dealt with customer service, you know that it's going to gather information about their experience with the customer care or customer representatives. Now, when you get that information, you're going to analyze that information and then make the necessary changes that you need to make to your staff, whether it is to train them or if that person needs disciplinary action or anything of that sort. But that's what you gather the information for. Question 5 says define the term business technology. Now, business technology is the use of information technology within the operations of a business. It says list 4 factors that determine a country's standard of living or the quality of life of its citizens. So I listed 5. The availability of public resources. So do we have healthcare? Is it free? Do we have education? Is it free? Right? Do we have transportation? Is it affordable? Average disposable income. So how much money do we have after we have bought all the necessary items or basic needs for the month? Do we have money available? Unemployment rate. How much persons are unemployed? Crime rate and level of poverty. Those will affect our standard of living. Quest- 5C says define each of the following terms. The first one being gross domestic product, GDP. Now, GDP is a measure of the value of goods and services that are produced within a country, regardless of whether the owners of the factors of production are in the country. While gross national product is the measure of the value of goods and services produced by a country's citizens, whether or not they are located in the country. All right. So I hope you're noting the difference. All right. D. Low levels of production is a major economic problem facing Caribbean countries. We should outline two possible solutions other than education to this economic problem. And I gave two here. The first one being technological improvement. So if you improve technology, we're going to have more machinery in the business. What one human can do, sorry, what 10 humans can do, a machine can probably do that in a faster time, right? And therefore, when you invest in technology, goods are going to be produced faster and therefore production levels will rise. Also, if you increase the access to finance, so the more capital you have, the more you're going to be able to invest in the business, invest in technology, invest in staff, and therefore production will increase. All right. E says explain two ways in which investment in education by Caribbean governments can lead to an increase in the production of goods and services in the region. So if we invest in education, the workforce will have more skills, and therefore the staff will find innovative ways to create the products faster, and innovative products will be created as well, and therefore productivity will increase because more goods are being made in less time. Education will also encourage entrepreneurship, and therefore other businesses will be created that offer different products, and therefore that will also boost the economy and increase the number of goods and services being offered in the region. All right, so that is the end of the paper. I don't think this paper was hard. Let me know your comments in the chat below. All right, thank you for watching. Bye.